I wonder what God actually says about adultery. Well, it's a no-brainer. It's simple. You already know, don't you? What is it, Ben?
Well, the seventh commandment is pretty straightforward. God says, you shall not commit adultery.
Okay.
So he's just saying straight out, relationships matter. And, you know, your sexuality is not just a toy. It's an important part of who you are. And if you're going to be the healthiest and happiest you can be, you're going to value it, look after it. It's there for our own good.
Okay. But, you know, since the 1960s, people would say society has changed, culture's changed, we've got different values today. You just have to see what you're watching on the TV. It's a lot of fun. It's only a fling. It's an affair. What does God think about adultery just being an affair or a fling?
Well, the Bible's truths are sort of being repeated again and again. Even in today's society, statistics show that marriages today where they're committed to one another have the happiest and most fulfilling sex lives. So it's a positive teaching that God gave us hundreds of years ago. But the Bible's pretty clear about it. And take, for example, the story of King David. King David had everything he wanted. He had a beautiful wife already. And many of you would know the story. He's up on his roof. He looks across, and on the rooftop of a neighbouring castle or palace or, you know, big expensive home right next door, he sees this beautiful woman, Bathsheba, and she's having a bath up on the roof. Now, at that point...
Oh, okay. Kind of like a porn magazine in 3D.
That's right. He's doing a bit of voyeurism. He's looking across and he's seeing this beautiful woman. He had a choice right then and there, and he chose to just enjoy the moment and stick with it. Now, many of you would know the story. One thing led to another, and after sort of indulging in that, he couldn't help himself, and next thing you know, she was over visiting and they had an affair, and then she fell pregnant. And the Bible tells the terrible story that it was David's friend who was her husband, but David ended up having him murdered, knocked off, to avoid the humiliation of it all being brought out.
So he saw a living version of a man's magazine.
That's right.
And the lesson is that these kinds of...
Well, one thing led to another. And so I guess the application to us today is that even though it might not be a person, it all begins with a look. And the power of the eyes are significant in a man. The way you look at something has a huge impact on how our brains work.
Okay, well, I'm going to represent all the blokes, and I just want to wrestle Neil to the carpet, Ben. We're going to ask Neil, how can a bloke not look at a woman who's beautiful? I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, look, that's a great question, isn't
I'm
it?
not just talking about an ordinary look, I'm talking about the look.
Yeah, the look. I think really the only way is, you know, take someone like Job, for instance. He had just made a vow in his heart which said, hey, I'm not going to go there. And so he didn't. And so he stayed true to the promise that he'd made to himself and to his wife. And in the Apostle Paul, though, writing many years later, actually says in 1 Corinthians 10, he says, you know, no temptation has come to you which is not common to everyone. So everyone's experienced the same kind of temptations.
And we don't often talk about this one, do we?
But we don't. Yeah, you're right. You know, I mean, I was just thinking before, hearing Ben talk about mates of mine as we walk down the beach, and they're just, you know, eye candies everywhere, you know, as you walk down the beach. It's all there. It's all ready for you to actually see. But the question is, you're going to take that second look. And so that's the temptation, is to take and linger over that second look. And the Bible says that, hey, God provides a way of escape. So there is a way of escape there. You can take a hold of God's power and let God's power come in and offer you that way of escape, or you can end up in a mess like David.